All right, I'm going to try this one more time. Looks like we have audio. Yay. Okay, excellent. I don't know what is going on with my computer. I'll figure it out next time. Hello, good morning. Happy Sunday, everybody. Another week over and a one just begun. I am SG Tosh. You can call me Sarah if you're watching this. Whew, it has been a crazy week for me anyway. This is the first week because things have been so insane with me trying to get my new book out and all the events I've been doing and all of this stuff. My son went to daycare full time for the first time in about a year and a half, 2 years last week. And I mean, it is wild what you can do when you have time to be like, I said at one point to my husband, like, it's easy to be patient when you have time. And it's true. Like, if you are trying to, like, I was trying to shove 60, 70 hours worth of work a week into 3 days, plus a little bit on the weekends. And like, my patience was terrible. I was irritable all the time. Like, it's so much easier to work when you have time. And I feel really lucky that I'm able to do that. So that's been my week. I also just got back last week from my very first big kind of book talkish sort of event, convention, I guess we'd call it, fair, festival, one of those words. All of them are appropriate. Use the one you like. And it was called Enemies and Lovers, put on by Tea and Tropes. I believe it was their flagship event. It was in Mesa, Arizona, so I was able to drive to it. And it was 2 days, which is twice as long as any other event I've done. Every other one has been a single day, aside from like attending conferences for educational purposes. And it was amazing. And it's actually what I wanted to talk about in this episode of Sensitive Artist Sunday, because it has been a while since I've done something truly new. And I'll be honest, like, this year has felt a little bit like stagnation, and like I'm just sort of doing the same thing. I felt like I hit a wall earlier this year with like my sales, and that was affecting like my online presence. It was affecting my attitude. It was affecting my writing. And it was just feeling like this isn't going, like, I'm just kind of doing this, maybe a little bit this, but like just kind of moving along. And typically that's where I start, me personally, I start looking for a way out or looking for something else to do. And that's typically bad. So this conference couldn't have come at a better time, or convention, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go with event. That's just easiest. And I think it was called technically a fantasy book event, because that's what it was. Although heavily geared towards the romantasy subgenre, which, you know, sort of to be expected. It's very hot right now. So that's what I want to talk about. And with the title of this, which I will put back on there now that I know the audio is working on this video, I want to talk about this concept that's sort of not new to me, but something I hadn't thought about in a while, of the elder indies. And what I mean by that is people who have been in independent production. I always am talking specifically about writing, but any production in an independent capacity for a number of years. And this is particularly interesting right now in the book industry, because you have, you know, independent publishing started around, I would say, I'm sort of pulling these numbers just out of my own experience, but it began around, really started to take off around 2012, 13, somewhere in there. So we're coming up on, I mean, we're past 10 years. We're almost at 15 now of this really being something. Championed by Amazon, feel however you want about them. I certainly do. But they were the ones that kind of gave indies this platform to do something with. And back then, it was a lot of, it was seen as something that you went to the indie, you went to Create Space, or whatever it was called back then. I think it was Create Space, because you tried and failed to get an agent and go through the traditional route. And you only do this as a desperation move, basically. And there are still, I would say, probably people who think that. In fact, I know there are. I won't say names and I won't say how I know, but just trust me, they're out there still. But in that time, and I've spoken to people who published around then. Tom Keller, who's writes the Vegas Phase series, he started publishing around then, and I have on a different YouTube channel, which maybe I'll link here. He has a fascinating interview about what it was like to be publishing at the start of kind of the indie groundswell. And, things have progressed heavily since then. Independent publishing and independent, with resources like Kickstarter, with the continued, sort of domination of Amazon, at least for the moment, but also the rise of other platforms like Barnes & Noble, making it a lot easier for indies to go directly through their site. Ingram Spark catering more to the indie sort of budget and level of what you're able to kind of do. An entire cottage industry of independent, sites like Fiverr and all of those, able to give you these professional covers at a price, that you could afford. Editors, all of these things have grown up to support this indie industry in the last 12 years. That being said, with all of that support growing and all of these resources, it's become a very crowded space, especially in the last few years with sort of, in my industry, my genre, fantasy, urban fantasy, a little bit of romance. There's been just a massive amount of people entering the writing community. And this was, I knew this. I see this on Instagram, a lot of debut authors, independent debut authors, small press debut authors, kind of getting their new stuff out there. Influencers, I'm not going to say bookfluencers because that's a terrible portmanteau. And if there's one thing I hate, like it's a pet peeve of mine, is like just a crappy portmanteau, even though we use them all the time, but like it's up here. I don't like it. So book influencers, growing to, support promoting these things and getting them out there. Where's I going with this? Oh, so I knew all of this just from, being in the industry day in and day out. But when I went to this conference event, sorry, I'm going to just ignore me. You know what I mean? When I went to this event, I also was lucky enough to be on a panel, which was all about self-publishing, everything you need to know about self-publishing. Yeah, I put it in my journal because I remember stuff that way. With these amazing authors, I don't know if you can read that, and I'm going to butcher their names, but it was Brittany Gosson, Jade Neoma, Trinity Matthews, and me. And we got to the panel and we were, did our little intros, introduced ourselves, and come to find out, I had not met any of these ladies beforehand. I'd meant to, but this was the second day of the conference. Things had been busy. I had been very overwhelmed, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So I didn't get the chance to go to their booths and meet them, which was too bad. So I didn't know their whole history until they gave it on the panel. And I went first and I talked about, I've been published since 2019 in the independent industry. I've got 11 books out, 12, whatever. 11 books over 2 series and then 1 random novelette. So technically it's 12. And I said that, and, I've been to 20 books to 50K. I've been to Author Nation. I've never been on a panel, but I've watched, people give presentations in this kind of setting, and people, they come from the, rapid release sort of method. A lot of them do, not all. And, I'm used to hearing people say, oh, I've been in the business since 2015. I've got 200 books published, my little 6-year, 11 books, not that impressive. But when I said that, the crowd, there was not an overwhelming response, but there was more than one people kind of doing this, whoa, which surprised me. And then the other ladies on the panel introduced themselves, and then I quickly realized why it was a surprise. The other women on the panel, I think they had, and I'm again, ladies, if you see this and I'm getting it wrong, I do apologize. But from what I recall, and again, the adrenaline was running a little bit because you're in front of a big group. What I recall is everyone was within their first 2 years of publishing, and I believe within their first 2 or 3 books. So right away, that put me in a position of like, wow, I'm actually kind of, you know, a step beyond a beginner now. I hope, because like when you're in it, when you're in the trenches of writing and marketing and hustling, you don't really think, you know, it's hard to see how you're getting anywhere. Like I said, this year has been stagnation a little bit for me. It feels like I haven't gotten anywhere. It feels like I'm still at the beginning. And just treading the same road. And that was very much a moment where I was sort of in a place where I was not even stopped myself, just was stopped by this and given a chance to look around and sort of in a way look behind me, metaphorically, and be able to say, I have traversed distance. And that's great. Like, you know, even, my stomach's crawling. It's weird to have that moment where it's, you know, being able to look back and see where you've come from. It was extremely, it was cool, and then it was intimidating, and then it was a little bit like that moment of like, oh my God, I've been doing this for so long. Why am I not further? But, you know, as I've said before, we're always harshest on ourselves. So I think, you know, I look at people who are, you know, 6-figure or more authors, and I'm like, oh, I want to be there. But I forget that there are people who are out there who have not yet published a book and are looking at me and thinking, oh, I want to be there. So, and that's probably true of you as well. If you're out there and you're anywhere really, like even if I would be willing to bet that even if you're not published yet, or even if you're not released yet, whatever your art is, but you're working on it, or you're close to being done, or you're, you know, querying, or you're in the process of getting it edited, or you're like, you know, a few weeks from your release, like there are people out there who are like, oh man, I wish I was that far. I wish I had written my book. You know, I wish my book was at a stage of that, which, you know, is not particularly like, I mean, it's not healthy. It's fine. You can, you know, it's good to have goalposts. It's good to have manageable goalposts that you can shoot towards. You know, that's something I do. My next goalpost is not 6-figure author, but that's neither here nor there. As I talked about last week, reasonable hope, reasonable goals. So that was the biggest thing I think I had. And then, you know, it is something to reckon with being where I am. Because the other thing I noticed was I was not the oldest person there, but definitely not the youngest. And here in Vegas, I would say that the community is, you know, it goes through cycles, but I would say the community is older and I'm on the younger end. So that was a little bit of an interesting situation for me to be in as well, is to be someone who was in a position to be looked up at least in a respect your elders sort of way, if not a you're very impressive from a career standpoint, or like I've ever heard of you before. Which, to be fair, like except for the headliners, I think most people had never been heard of before, and that's why you go to those things, is so you can find someone new and fun. I certainly did. So it was all very interesting. There were moments where as I was sitting on the panel, and definitely the first day, because like I said, this is my first big conference, where there were moments of like, I do not belong here. Like, I have made a huge mistake. I've wasted my money. I've wasted a trip. I've wasted my time. What am I doing here? I should just give up. And if you have been to conferences or you're planning to go to conferences, you should know that that is probably going to be something that happens to you at least once, probably your first event that you do, your first like major event. And then the next time you level up to another, like the next tier, like I did, you know. I will tell you, like the first time I did the Las Vegas Book Festival, which is a very good event, but a lot smaller. I had that same feeling. The first time I did the 20 books, I had that same feeling. And I think that's a good sign. It means that you are doing something new. But also, like, you're doing something that is appropriate to your challenge level. Like, you are at the correct challenge rating, to borrow a tabletop role-playing game reference. And the reason I know it's not outside of your challenge level is because at one point when you signed up for it, you thought it was a good idea. So your nerves are telling you that you are in the wrong place. You're not. That's just your nerves. Like, you are scared because this is a new monster and a little bit bigger than the monsters you've faced before. But you're in the right place. And it did take me a good couple of hours the first day to like really settle in. And the reason was because everyone around me, all of their booths were just, I mean, I had my own booth, which is rare. Usually I'm sharing with somebody. It was an 8-foot table, also rare. I'm used to 6, so I had some extra space. And mostly it was because everybody's booths around me were gorgeous. They looked so professional. They had the beautiful art, their like character art or, evocative art behind them. They had these beautiful like candles and, fabrics and stuff, and their books were like all on nice shelves, and they were set up in this really gorgeous way. And I have a complex about my covers. Like, I always assume they're bad. So I was like, everybody's looks better. Again, it was a lot of romanticy, so a lot of the covers kind of fit with each other. Mine is contemporary mystery, contemporary fantasy mystery, so similar but different enough that it was sort of like enough to make me feel like I don't belong. And then, of course, I had Dead Mall as well, which is paranormal comedy, which that is something I will say with this conference. What I think surprised me the most, there were a lot of things I did right. Like, my pricing was good. My setup was generally okay. What surprised me the most was that each booth, 8-foot table, one series, sometimes one book. I thought it was going to be, I brought both of my series, and instead of that being a benefit, I mean, it was a benefit. And then I sold from both. I actually sold out of, I think, Welcome to Halcyon and Veiled Threats, the first two books, and January Hours, but I never bring a lot of copies of those. So I actually sold out of more copies of the Dead Mall books than I did of Misadventure. But in the beginning, I had it where Misadventure was kind of on the table level, and Dead Mall was in a shelf up here. And so it drew the eye, and because it didn't match the other books, people were confused, and they walked right by Misadventure, which was arguably the more fitting title, and just walked right past me. And I saw this happening, and everyone else around me was getting sales or they were getting interest. And this is what pulled me down. And I was sort of spiraling. I could feel it. And I was like, there was a moment where I was like, okay, well, I can either throw in the towel, give up, and just, call this a wash and kind of just say, screw it, I'm just going to be here and have fun. Or I can still have fun and be here. Or I can open my eyes, stop with the like insecurity, just shut that up, deal with it later, open my eyes, look around, see what it is that I can do now while I'm here. Like, there are things that they had that I was never going to be able to get, banners and shit. I can't get that. I have what I have. What can I do with what I have? So first thing, obviously, put Dead Mall on same level with Misadventure. The advice I did hear later is you do want elevation, you do want height, but I think you do want even height. You don't want to elevate one over the other. And I think that also applies if you only had one series. I did keep Dead Mall out, though, and it's a good thing I did, because I knew that was going to appeal to a certain niche element of the conference. It always does. So I was like, I'm going to keep it out. I'm not going to dump it entirely, but I'm going to condense it down. I lift Misadventure up a little bit, stack the books a little higher, push them forward, put out prices. I normally don't list prices. Everyone else had price lists. I couldn't print a price list. I didn't have a holder, so I just wrote down little price tags. Did a lot better after I changed it. Almost it was immediate. Almost. I changed it probably halfway through the first day. 5 minutes after I pulled Dead Mall down to the same level, I sold a 3-book paperback set of Misadventure. This is what I'm saying. Like, and this goes back to this idea of stagnation is like, and being an elder is, if you're stagnating, it's because you're not challenging yourself. And you don't have to stay where you are. If you're not happy with where you are, if you're not happy with the results you're getting, do something different. Nobody's stopping you except you. You know, it's the time. You do have to have the time. You can be more patient. You can be more experimental when you have time. But there's no reason not to try it. What do you have to lose? You know, what did I have to lose by pulling down Dead Mall? Nothing was really happening anyway. Why not try it? And it worked out, you know? And given the fact that like I was able to see what was going on, what other people were doing, I felt like it was a pretty good, educated thing to do. So I was happy I did it. And then this is the other part about being an elder indie is even if you're older, even if you're far along on your journey and you feel like, you know, you have this experience, but maybe you're not where you want to be, like me, you know. I think there is a wisdom in staying in your lane, picking a lane, and just continuing on after it. That's never really been my thing. It's why I'm doing this show right now, is I don't believe in putting yourself in one box. I got into the independent space with Dead Mall because I knew that was never going to be something that went through Trad Pub. They were never going to take a comedy horror novella series from a nobody. Maybe they would have been right because Dead Mall is, you know, actually that's not true. Dead Mall has its audience. It's just very, very small and cult. Which is probably where I'm always meant to be, is sort of a if I could get a cult following, I would feel like I've reached the pinnacle of my life. So I've never really wanted to be super high, well known. I would love to have a cult following, and that would be that's where I want to live. So that's what I'm saying is like, if you found a lane that works for you and you're happy in it and you're doing well and you like your trajectory, I'm not going to tell you not to do that. Absolutely do that. Best of luck to you. I'm so excited that that's working out for you. If you are struggling in your lane that you've chosen and so there is a caveat to this. I will say this, and this is going to segue into the last thing I'm going to say, and then we can all get on with our weekend. At the end of the panel, they asked us, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's either a new author or thinking about becoming an independent author? Normally, I hate that question because it's just like, where do you even go? It's so big. And I ended up answering last. They started at the other end of the panel, and they all gave great answers. If you can find, I think the video is on my Instagram, and I'm sure it's on. I think Brittany's PA was doing the video, so it might be on hers too, or it would be on hers too. She might have a longer one, is what I'm saying. And it got to me, and my advice is, and I kind of pulled this just from the big idea. Because it's something that everyone can use. And I do really believe this is, if I can give one piece of advice to new independent authors, it is patience and joy is what you need. And the reason I say that is because I think everybody wants to, and maybe even in some case expects to have instant success, because you see, you know, Instagram sensations, TikTok sensations, people hitting number 1 on Amazon with their first book, all of these things. And you think that's the norm. It's not. I can promise you it's not. And if it is, it's because those I mean, if an author has done that, it's not luck. It's because they've worked extremely, extremely hard on learning their genre, researching their comps, probably doing some influencer work, and various other things. It is fine if it takes you longer than one book, one series, multiple years to get where you want to go, to get a number one selling book. I have not reached that yet, so I will tell you that, but I have seen many people who have, and I think they'll tell you the same thing because they've told me the same thing at other conferences. So patience is first. And then if and when you hit a point like I did earlier this year, where the patience starts to wear thin and you're feeling like, what am I doing? Why isn't it happening for me? Why do I feel like I'm getting nowhere? That's where the joy comes in. Because if you can find the joy to get you through the times where it's frustrating, that's going to help you get to the next place. And that is, I think, where I'm going to leave it today. Patience and joy. And that is it for me. So we are at episode 5. Thank you for watching. As I've said, this is episode 5. I am doing, a 10 episode quote unquote season. So we'll keep running these episodes now that I'm back. We'll run them all the way through the end of June, or right before the end of June, because it is, I'm leaving for the Kenosha Book Festival and Convergence Con in Minneapolis, which I'm very excited about. This Enemies and Lovers was amazing. 2-day festival. Convergence is, and it was one I could drive to. Convergence is a 4-day festival that I am flying to. So I definitely am happy I did this one first, so I could kind of see. It's very different types of festivals. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. And yeah, so the next 5 episodes, I'm going to get up the pre-links for it. I know that nobody's really watching these live right now, which is fine. I'll talk to myself for half an hour on Sunday. I don't care. But if you do watch this after the fact, please subscribe to the channel, give a like, let me know what you think about what I've talked about here today. And let me know if there's anything you'd want to get, my input on. Like I said, I am an elder indie. I've been doing this for 6 years. I may not be a massive, moonshot success, but I have learned a lot of stuff. So that you won't have to if you ask me about it. So, and I am actually good at some things. I put myself down a lot, but there are some things I am good at. I have, just for the record, I have won awards. So my money might not be there, but they're still good books. Okay. So the next 5 episodes, if I don't get any input, which I don't expect, and that's fine. I think I'm going to do some stuff a little bit different now that I have some time to kind of settle into, to this. And I've kind of gotten a sense of what it is. The topics might look a little different. I might be in a different place. I might be doing some different things. I might have some guests, I hope. So we will see. But yes, I hope you all have a fantastic Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great week. And I will see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.